If you want to improve your professional life, you've got to prioritize healing your personal wounds. Join me and my former client, Nicole Santiago, for a candid conversation about her story of personal transformation. In this episode, you'll become aware of your secret shames and how they're holding you back. You'll understand the value of imperfect leadership, or as Nicole likes to say, lead by flaws. And you'll learn why your personal transformation will become the catalyst for living in alignment both professionally and personally. Nicole's greatest passion is serving and helping women reach their fullest potential. As a SkyAngels trainer and SKYmentor, Nicole masters the role of training and mentoring students to be private flight attendants in addition to working on private jets herself. Nicole has been with SkyAngels since its inception and plays a big part in the company's success. Nicole bases her SkyAngels curriculum on creating a fun learning environment focused on hands-on experience, utilizing personal experience and the power of storytelling. This conversation kicks off my special 10-episode client feature, where I'm featuring incredible clients who inspire me. If you're interested in working with me, a great place to start would be my Unleashed and Unapologetic training. Head to rubyfremont.com/unleashed and sign up. Today's episode is sponsored by the Mayfair Hotel and Eve American Bistro in downtown Los Angeles, home of my annual 3-day event, Amplified Soul Live. The 2019 event takes place February 22nd to the 24th. For info and tickets, head to www.rubyfremont.com/ASL. Now it's time to continue this 10-episode client feature with Nicole Santiago. Welcome to today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. I'm your host, Ruby Fremont, and I'm here as a catalyst for you, the new generation of thought leaders. Join me every week as I dive into raw and real conversations that will help you amplify your presence, influence, and impact. Hey, thought leaders. I am super excited to introduce you to the lovely Nicole Santiago, who has worked with me through the Inner Tribe program and another group program, and she is just an amazing, incredible soul to get to know. So I'm excited to share her and her wisdom and her gifts with you today. Hey, Nicole.
Hi. Thank you for having me here. I'm super grateful.
Of course, I'm really happy to have you here. So let's talk about where should we start, Nicole? Where should we start?
Well, I really wanted to talk about one of the most impactful things I got out of working with you, because I am a former client of yours, and I've been thinking about Ruby and the impact that each person has in our lives. And I went to your retreat out in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
And
Joshua Tree.
And before my bags were even unpacked, we all sat out, all of us ladies from all over the place, all over the world, really, outside of the United States. And you asked us a really impactful question. And that was, what is it you don't want us to know? And that still sticks with me right now, because as I was sharing the things that I didn't want anyone to know, I found that through that question, it was such a catalyst for me to grow and change and find so much of who I really am. And it's interesting how that question has really impacted my life.
Yeah, it's one of those questions that when I ask it, the look on people's faces usually tells me enough about what's going on through their heads. But what I'm more curious to know and to want to know is, why did it end up being so impactful for you? What did that bring out in you that maybe you didn't have access to before?
Deep breath. So I'm just gonna bring it out there to all the listeners and just share that something that I've been really holding on, and that immediately came to mind when you said that in front of a room full of women, was that I actually really am afraid. I have a fear of women, that they don't like me.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to say that in front of all of these women was very, very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the container that was created out there was such a safe and loving and non-judgmental container that it,
Non-gentle at times.
that it was exactly what I needed to be able to create a new answer around all of the negative beliefs that I had created around women. And it's funny that I say that because I've created my entire career off of helping and working with women.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how many people else out there have these secret shames or these secret things that they carry around with them. And whether it's subconsciously or unsubconsciously, that becomes something that has so much energy that we actually choose careers or we choose lifestyles that allow us to try to fix it without actually fixing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So like we're trying to fix it for other people versus like fixing it in our own lives.
Absolutely.
And it's like something I always say, as entrepreneurs, the majority of entrepreneurs will always create products or services that they wish they had. The majority of entrepreneurs will create products and services that they wish they had. And part of that is innovation. Obviously, they're like, oh shit, I see a need for something, I'm going to create it. And then the other part of it is that part where they're really unconsciously wanting to heal it, but by creating the product or the service or doing the thing, they're avoiding actually looking within and healing that part of themselves. So for you, with your work, to help other women create that connection and foster that connection. So you were on one hand cultivating that space for other women to connect, but in your own personal life, would you say you were avoiding it or you were just unconscious to it?
No, I think I've been pretty honest, especially in the therapy work that I've done in the past, because I love self-help books. I've been in and out of therapy for at least like a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been something I'm aware of. But what I didn't realize until the retreat with you, Ruby, is that sometimes healing is a group collective thing that needs to happen. And for me, with women, it wasn't something that I could talk about with one individual and get the healing that I needed. And so being in this container that we created,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to rewrite all of the negative experiences that I've had throughout my past that kept telling me, women don't like you, women, you don't fit in, you're not enough, whatever it is, and actually be in a space where all of those things were not true. And I don't know how that can happen when you're not in a container where you can create that world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what that brings up for me is it's like when we have a fear of something, usually, I mean, for me, in my experience, the only way through the fear is like actually facing your fear. And so for you being someone who, feared women, to be put into a house with other women and you're staying with them for 4 days straight. There's nowhere to go. You're in the desert. I mean, I basically locked you in a house with your greatest fear.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say, to contrast just facing your fear,
Mm-hmm.
that I do think that there's a more positive way to go about just saying, oh, okay, I'm going to go face my fear,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to create a system in place that's going to support me in this process of dealing with my wounds. So for example, I am also, and one of the reasons I am very passionate about women is because I am a survivor of sexual abuse. And I trying to find a way to do that healing. I remember when I was in my teens, I opened the Yellow Pages, and because I was a Christian, I opened up and I found a random church, and I called some random priest off of the Yellow Pages and confessed all these things that I had been dealing with. And the pastor said, your sins are forgiven, like whatever. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I'm telling you what's happened to me. And I was searching out a way to create a container for me to have healing, but it was the wrong container. It was just me throwing something out there and hoping for that healing. So it perpetuated that going on. And I think in the past, I've tried to create ways for me to deal with, you know, my feelings and my uncomfortability around women, but it wasn't the right space. And I think so many times people don't know how to create that space for themselves so they can receive the healing that they want. And I think you're so great at creating that for people that I'd love for you to just speak on, if they don't have the opportunity to go to one of your wonderful retreats, like how are ways that people can create that in their life so they can get the healing that they want?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that you just flipped the tables on me. Yeah, it's awesome that you mentioned containers, because safety is one of those things that we as human beings always fall back to. We need to feel safe. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like that feeling of safety is an innate need. So anytime we do not feel safe, or we feel like we're in danger, which is a lot of what we feel when we're looking to be vulnerable and share, we'll hold back. We won't enter that space. We won't be around that space. It's like an alert system goes off in our mind saying danger, 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 stay away. And yet at the same time, we need to challenge ourselves to step into that, because our minds can make assumptions about safety that aren't actually true. So for those who don't have access to things like a retreat that is facilitated by a coach, or a safe space with a therapist, or counseling, or anything like that, and you're looking to heal a specific wound, then first you have to recognize what it is that you're looking to heal. For Nicole, she recognized what that was. So you need to recognize, what is it that you're looking to heal, and what would become possible if you were to heal this. You have to open yourself up to the possibility, because for so long, probably for years, maybe decades, you've been playing this threat over and over again in your head, like women are dangerous, or I'm not good at this, or whatever the fear is. You've been replaying that over and over and over again. So you need to tell your mind something different. Like, this is what's going to become possible when I overcome this fear, or when I overcome this. This is what I have access to. So that's how you create the space within yourself. But Nicole had a great point of, sometimes we need others to help facilitate that healing, or to support that healing. So for you, maybe it's your family, or a close friend or two, or a mentor, or a guide. Who is it that you already feel safe with? Who would be a great person to lean on while you're going through this and looking to heal this one specific thing? So I love that. I love that you threw that question back to me. And I'm going to ask you a question now, because you brought up, and I love this, you said secret shames. And I love that. I almost feel like that could be the title of a book, Secret Shames. But it's so true. Like, we all have these secret shames that we walk around with. And when we actually acknowledge what those things are out loud in front of people, it's both scary as fuck, and at the same time freeing, at least the way that I've experienced it, because I have the freedom of saying, wow, this is what I've been experiencing. And like the scary part of, oh my God, I just got totally naked in front of this person, and just let them know how I was feeling. So what has that been like for you, the secret shames? Because we really just put you in the spotlight in that moment.
I would say that the freedom that comes with really revealing the things that really scare myself and going through that healing has created so much room and space in my heart to be able to have energy for my work, space to love more deeply for other people, and just a surge of creativity. You know, I've been working on writing this book, and ironically it is for women, and yet I didn't feel worthy enough to write to speak to other women. So that was like a huge roadblock right there. And then the moment that I was able to kind of release myself from that shame, I was able to release myself, and I finished like all my writing, you know, a year's worth of writing, like in a couple months, because it was just the mental roadblocks that we put in ourselves. I don't even know that they're weighing me down, because that's all I feel. And I don't know, and I haven't felt anything different than I need to overcompensate the fact that people don't like me by spending my energy and trying harder and doing this and doing that. And it's exhausting. And I didn't even realize it, because that's the only way I know.
I love that you use the word overcompensation. I think a lot of people do this without even recognizing that they're doing it. They overcompensate because of a fear of something, or a fear of being seen a certain way, or a fear of not meeting other people's expectations. And so we overcompensate in that way. How has that shifted for you since really diving into, because I mean, let's make this super clear for our audience. When you joined my program, you thought it was going to be more business, and what you got was something totally different.
Absolutely. I
surprise.
I know, that's the funny thing. Life doesn't really give you what you think you want. It gives you what you really want.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, as a business, you know, I was trying to look at a way to increase my revenue of my business, which is a flight attendant training company, SkyAngels, and looking to partner up with other business women to get new innovative ideas that would propel and increase our revenue. What I got was me stepping away from my business, redefining who I am, and through a redefining of my identity, my whole life shifted. So it's interesting how when you actually get to the core of issues, you have to be ready to like totally shift gears, because the reasons and the things I was doing were not coming from a genuine place. They're coming from, you know, I'm a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist. And a lot of the things I have previously done were not for me at all. It was just because, I have a problem saying no. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And so, and even my career in private aviation, I take care of people. It is perpetuating all of the qualities I am trying to rid myself of.
Yeah. That, and it, you know, it's so interesting that, because this really proves the point that we create a life outside of ourselves based on our inner circumstances. So what's going on inside of us is very much reflected in the life that we create outside of ourselves. And so for you, I mean, working in a service-based industry, people pleasing in your personal life, in your business life, and then experiencing this real transformation through personal development, which I love that it was a surprise to you, number one. And number two, I'm just so happy that you got to experience it. And you mentioned how it changed like everything, and it has the power to change everything, and people need to be warned about this. And it's so true. So why don't you tell us, because you mentioned that you felt like you were doing things for the wrong reasons, like you were doing your business for the wrong reason. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what that was like prior to this journey of personal development, and what it feels like now? Because essentially you're still running the same company, like you're still part of the same company, but what shifted?
So the reason I gravitated towards working with women in private aviation is because I started working as a private flight attendant and it didn't fulfill me enough. So I gravitated towards training and mentoring and certifying ladies that are getting into the private aviation sector and certifying them and mentoring them through their career.
Right.
What I loved was the women.
Mm.
And what I loved was helping them moving from I don't know what I'm doing and walking their hand through, oh my gosh, I'm in a career that I love and I feel empowered. I'm now doing this. The platform was all wrong for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still doing and I'm taking advantage of my now almost 10 years of experience in the industry to write about it and use that as a catalyst for what I really, am more passionate about. And it's right now it's just debunking the stereotypes of women and understanding what women that are strong really look like.
Mm. Well, okay, I'm going to interrupt you right there because what I love about that is that, so redefining what strong women are really like, it's like you have already started to do that in your own life personally. It's like in order to step into this new evolution of Nicole, of who you are, of this book that you're now writing, you needed to also experience that for yourself and experience what it's like to be really strong yourself and redefine who you are. It's like what I always say, we have to be the person who is actually going to fulfill the vision. And for you, I feel like this was a really big opening for you to step into or rise up into who you are right now in this moment, and to be able to then translate this message through your book to your audience. It's really like, okay, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book? Because I think that'll give our listeners a greater insight into like your purpose and your vision right now.
Well, absolutely. First of all, I don't think anyone that knows me would think that I'm a very unconfident person. So like the book could have been written and people would have no idea that I wasn't really speaking from a truthful place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, oh, there we go. But at the same time, because now I feel the way I want to feel, not, it's actually in alignment. And it's like making me so sad. I mean, I'm like actually in tears because it's just such a beautiful thing to feel so much more in alignment with how you want to feel about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been wanting to share with women about harassment, about how to really be in power, gain your power from a place from within, regardless of who you're working with, and what that looks like. What does it look like to be a strong woman, specifically when you are working in the service industry and you're working with high-powered men? And it's something that I've always felt very passionate about because I've had experiences where I've felt like I've given my power away,
Mm-hmm.
and it's confusing, and I didn't feel like I could really speak on this because I've been in contradiction. I've done it the right way. I've done it the wrong way. Sometimes I've said the wrong thing or I've done the right thing, and who am I to tell anyone about anything?
Mm.
But at the same time, I've been learning and rewriting the story of everyone has a story and everyone's in a different place. And if one person can learn from that, it's a beautiful thing.
Mm.
And there's something really beautiful about sharing your story. And everyone wants to feel loved and accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And when you share your story, you're giving people an opportunity to find a connection and feel like that's me, and that it's worth putting myself out there to do that.
Mm. I love that you said that story being an opportunity to find connection, because it truly is. the only way that, for our listeners listening, like the only way your audience is ever going to really feel connected to you is if you share pieces of you, which means sharing pieces of your story, sharing vulnerably, being real. And in doing so, you create that connection that everyone desires feeling, right? We all desire feeling connected to each other. So that's super powerful. And in the work that you do with SkyAngels, for example, because you're around women all the time, how do you see this personal development work that you've done on yourself? How do you see that now trickling into the work that you're doing with these other women in SkyAngels?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that I've always felt as a leader that I lead by my flaws. I lead by example. I've never been into putting myself on a pedestal. I say I'm just a couple years and a couple more. I have a little bit more information than you do, but anyone that I work with can surpass me in the field that I'm in, and I would hope that they do. But I think that for me to feel like I don't have to prove myself to anybody, I really have more energy and love to give, because I'm not worrying about, gosh, do they like me? Do they this? Do they that? I can just show up, and there's a lot less anxiety. And the funny thing about all this like anxious anxiety, stress, that I was talking about earlier, no one else knows and no one else sees it but me. But it is there, and it is so nice not to have it anymore. So sometimes the feeling and the experience might look the same from outside, but what you have internally changes, and that it's just so nice to have that space.
Yeah, and I would even argue that sure, maybe you might seem like things are the same on the outside, but your presence and your energy will shift to other people. Your presence and your energy will always shift. When you do that inner work on yourself, the presence that you carry and the energy that follows suit is always going to have a different impact on those around you. So I'm excited to see how that impact continues to ripple in your life and in your career and in your book, because that's super duper exciting. So lead by flaws, I really want to touch on that before we end the episode, because I absolutely love that you say this. And I've heard you say it before, because it's so contradictory to how people tend to automatically think, perceive leadership. Like if I want to be seen as a leader, I need to show up perfect. If I want to be seen as an expert in this or a leader in this, I need to know everything. Like I need to have my shit together. I need to do this. But it's like I can relax when you said lead by flaws. It's like my shoulders went down. I was like, yeah, that feels so much better. Would you mind just talking to that a little bit? Because I just think it's really cool.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second and say that there's so many wrong ways that social media and the advertisement industry and just society in general shows that women are perfect, that women look and act flawless and all the time. And that is not true of me. I don't think that's true of anyone. And so I'm already setting up the women that I work with to fail if I'm acting like I've never made a mistake in my entire life. And therefore, in order for you to learn from me, you need to now be this perfect person. So I mean, I don't even think that I would be able to train if I wasn't showing up and sharing all the things I've done wrong, because the whole basis of my training and the way I train is through example. And I share a lot of stories because I think that stories are embedded and we remember them more than sharing factual information. So when I'm going through all of the emergency certification that they need, all of the culinary and etiquette and service and stuff that we go through, it's a week-long process.
Mm-hmm.
All of the training, I'm constantly telling them how I did it wrong and how I learned from this. So now you can learn and you don't need to make the same mistake. And one, it loosens everyone's energy because now everyone can kind of relax and not have to be perfect anymore. And I say you are going to make mistakes, but hopefully you don't make that one, because we already discussed how I, started a fire on an aircraft. So now you don't need to start a fire on an aircraft.
Yeah, and people don't ever forget stories like that. So I bet that they really learn their lessons when you're teaching them.
Absolutely.
In that way. I love that. Thank you so much, Nicole, for bringing yourself and just your authenticity to the podcast today, and for sharing your insights and a bit of your journey with me to our listeners. Is there a final thought that you would like to leave for our listeners?
Absolutely. So the final thought, Ruby, would be stop letting your shame, your secrets hold you back, and find your tribe and release that shit.
Love it. And if people want to stalk you online, where can they find you?
So I'm mainly on Instagram, but it's linked to my Facebook. It's Nicole K. Santiago.
And I'll have that linked in the show notes because it's a little
Yes.
confusing because she uses zeros and not O's.
And if you're interested in getting into private aviation or learning more about our training academy, that's at fly_SkyAngels.com. And I do have a special promo code if someone thinks that they might want to look into private aviation as a career path.
Awesome.
That is going to be we'll give them a discount on our application fee with the name Ruby.
Cool. So I will have all that info in the show notes for you thought leaders. Nicole, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm internally grateful for your presence in my life.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this special client feature on today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. This is the first episode of a 10-episode special series. So be sure to tune in tomorrow, where I'm going to be featuring another incredible client and thought leader who inspires me. If you want to hang out with me and Nicole in person in Los Angeles, come to Amplified Soul Live, which is my 3-day event in February, from February 22nd to the 24th. The link for that is rubyfremont.com/ASL. Don't forget to drop a rating and review on iTunes. And if you have any questions for me or Nicole, please reach out to us on social media. This episode was sponsored by the Mayfair Hotel and Eve American Bistro, home of Amplified Soul Live 2019. I will see you all here tomorrow for another special edition of today's Thought Leader.